it wasn't just a truck, it was a predator. The moment you hear that low, coughing rumble echo through the empty cornfields, that metallic growl rolling closer, you know something terrible is coming. The 1941 Chevy COE, known simply as the Creeper's Truck, isn't just one of horror cinema's most unforgettable machines. It's a character in its own right. Black as midnight oil, hulking like a mechanical beast dragged from hell, it roamed the screen in Jeepers Creepers 2001 with an energy that felt almost alive. Its snout-like front grille seemed to breathe. Its headlights pierced the darkness like eyes searching for prey. And that smell, the mix of gasoline, rust, and rot, became the scent of fear itself. But here's the unsettling truth. What if that sense of life wasn't all make-believe? Because, as the production crew would later whisper, that truck didn't just act possessed. Sometimes it behaved like it was. During filming, several mechanical failures happened in scenes tied to death, or violence, coincidences perhaps, but ones that made even hardened crew members step back. Behind the screen, this monstrous vehicle began as an ordinary 1941 Chevrolet cab-over engine truck, a working relic of American industry built for strength and endurance. But once it was reimagined for Jeepers Creepers, everything changed. Rust was hand-painted dents, were exaggerated exhausts, rerouted to snort smoke like a beast. Director Victor Salva wanted it to feel ancient and unstoppable, like it's been hunting since the 1940s, he once said. And that's exactly how it appeared on screen, not a truck chasing people, but a curse chasing generations. Every frame with the Creeper's truck carried that pulse, the strange illusion that metal and horror could fuse into one heartbeat. So before we dive into the countdown of the 20 terrifying facts behind this black-hearted machine, remember this: some movie cars are built to drive, this one was built to stalk. 20, the truck was found in a forgotten yard. Before it became the stuff of nightmares, the Creeper's truck sat abandoned on the outskirts of Ocala, Florida, hidden beneath weeds, and rust a ghost of American industry. The film's production designer stumbled upon it by chance, while scouting for props that could feel haunted without effort. What he found was perfect: a 1941 Chevy COE, its frame cracked, its paint dissolved by decades of rain, and its silhouette already menacing without any special effects. When the team cranked the key for the first time, it coughed out a thick black cloud like something alive gasping back to consciousness. That moment sealed its fate. 19, it was rebuilt by a single mechanic under secrecy. Once the truck was purchased, the studio handed it over to a local mechanic named Dean Jones, not the actor, but a man with a reputation for restoring U2-era vehicles. Jones was told almost nothing about the movie. He was given one instruction: make it terrifying, but make it real. Working in a secluded barn outside Gainesville, Jones spent 4 months reshaping the metal carcass. He cut the cab lower, widened the fenders, and replaced its heart a V8 engine from a 1970 Chevy truck. When the crew picked it up, they found the windows blackened and the doors welded tighter than planned. Jones reportedly muttered, "It doesn't like to be opened." 18, the filmmakers wanted it to smell of death. Director Victor Salva insisted that horror isn't only visual, it's sensory, so he ordered the art department to give the truck a smell. Using a mix of motor oil mildew and animal hide soaked in ammonia, they sprayed the interior until it reeked. Actors later said stepping inside the cabin was unbearable, like sitting inside a coffin that's been dug up. This unpleasant detail worked. The scent triggered real disgust on set, translating to genuine discomfort in their performances. Some called it method filmmaking, others just called it madness. 17, the license plate holds a secret code: Beaten Jew. At first glance, it reads like random letters, but fans soon cracked the code: be eating you. That license plate wasn't just a sick joke, it was carefully chosen by Salva to blur the line between the driver and the vehicle. In early drafts of the script, the Creeper was said to merge with his truck, controlling it through supernatural instinct rather than logic. The idea was dropped before filming, but the plate stayed a twisted little Easter egg, hinting that maybe the truck itself was hungry. 16, there was only one working truck, and it barely worked. Unlike most film productions which use multiple replicas, Jeepers Creepers relied almost entirely on a single functioning vehicle. The team built one lightweight shell for stunts, but it couldn't even drive. That meant every chase sequence, every collision, and every explosion had to be carefully orchestrated to avoid destroying their only hero truck. During filming, the clutch failed twice, the brakes overheated, and the radiator burst, each time delaying shooting for days. But somehow, the truck always came back to life, as if refusing to stay broken. Crew members joked, "You can't kill what's already dead." In these first 5 facts, the story of the Creepers truck begins not with design or fame, but with decay, resurrection, and obsession. It wasn't a prop built from imagination, it was a piece of forgotten machinery reborn with a new soul. And from that moment on, the line between fiction and reality began to blur. Every horror icon has a heartbeat. Jason had his machete, Freddy his glove. But the Creeper, he had a truck that breathed. And what came next, the transformations, the mistakes, the accidents that refused to stay accidents, would turn this vehicle from a movie car into a genuine Hollywood legend whispered about for years. 15. The engine was built to sound like a growl. When the truck's original inline-6 engine couldn't deliver the menacing roar Salva wanted, the sound team decided to teach it to growl. They replaced the motor with a 350 cubic inch V8 from a 1972 Chevy pickup, then tampered with its exhaust system to make it snarl. They even added a resonator chamber under the cab that amplified the sound at low RPMs, creating a deep, animalistic rumble that echoed through the set. The director reportedly told the mixer, "I don't want it to sound like a machine. I want it to sound like hunger." During playback, one crew member whispered, "It sounds like it's breathing." 14. The rust isn't paint, it's real corrosion. Instead of using movie paint, the art team decided to make the rust authentic. They sprayed the entire body with a mixture of vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, and salt water, then left it to corrode under the Florida sun for a week. The result metal so brittle it flaked when touched. They had to weld it repeatedly between takes just to keep it from falling apart. Yet on camera, it looked spectacular, a decaying beast that seemed to have survived decades of carnage. Ironically, the truck's deterioration became one of its greatest strengths. It looked too real to fake. 13. The rear door. Nearly injured a crew member. The Creeper's truck had that unforgettable rear door, the one that creaked open to reveal unspeakable horrors inside. But that door wasn't just spooky, it was dangerous. During a night shoot, a hinge snapped, slamming the steel panel onto a lighting technician's arm. Filming stopped for 2 days, and when the door was repaired, the team noticed something eerie. The hinge had split in a way that resembled a claw mark. It was pure coincidence, of course. But after that night, no one volunteered to stand near that door again. 12. The windows were made from real salvage glass. The fogged, grimy windows of the truck weren't made from fake props, they came from an actual junkyard. Set decorator Donnie Brown sourced the glass from a demolished meatpacking plant, drawn by the idea that it already had a history. Unfortunately, that history included years of chemical exposure. During filming, fumes built up inside the cab whenever the sun hit the windows, making the air inside toxic. Several actors complained of dizziness, forcing production to install hidden vents behind the dashboard. The Creeper's truck, one actor said, was literally trying to choke us. 11. A camera lens shattered without reason. During one of the highway chase scenes, a front-facing camera mounted on the truck suddenly cracked mid-take. No debris hit it, no vibration was strong enough, it simply fractured down the middle. The director later joked that the truck didn't like being filmed. The eerie coincidence wasn't lost on the crew. Every time something mechanical failed, it happened during a violent scene. A lighting rig burst during a jump scare. A tire deflated in silence. A fog machine overheated right before the Creeper's reveal. Nothing deadly, but enough to make even skeptics uneasy. These 5 mistakes painted a strange picture, a vehicle that resisted control, a prop that felt too alive. By the end of production, technicians refused to stay alone with it at night. It wasn't superstition, they said, it was instinct. By now, the Creepers' 1941 Chevy had crossed a line. It was no longer just a machine built to terrify, it became terror itself. And as the film rolled deeper into production, the truck began developing stories of its own mysterious malfunctions, missing tools, a driver who swore he saw something move inside the cab. Next, we enter the most chilling territory, yet the strangest secrets. 6. The tales the studio tried to downplay, the whispers that never made it into the DVD commentary, and the questions that still hang in the air. Was it really just a truck? 10. The truck moved on its own between takes. Multiple crew members have claimed they saw the truck roll several feet forward when no one was near it. The production had parked it on a flat road engine off brake locked, yet it crept silently as if something inside had nudged it. When questioned, the mechanic swore it was impossible. The parking brake's solid. That truck shouldn't move an inch. Some joked that a gust of wind did it. Others refused to laugh. After the third incident, the team began chaining the wheels every night. Even then, one morning they found it facing a slightly different direction. Nobody touched it, at least nobody human. 9. The horn sound came from a morgue van. To create the unholy screech of the Creeper's horn, the sound team experimented with several vintage truck horns, but none sounded right. Then, one technician brought in a real siren salvaged from a decommissioned 1940s coroner's van. The result was haunting a wailing cry that seemed to echo human pain. When they tested it on set, the noise sent birds scattering for miles and caused a local resident to call the police. Once they captured the sound, the team removed the horn, immediately saying we didn't want it following us home. 8. The truck's interior included real human bones. One of the creepiest secrets buried inside the truck is real human history. The set decorators used authentic medical skeleton parts, primarily femurs and ribs bought from an old anatomy supplier. They wanted the detail to look disturbingly authentic in close-up shots. But soon after strange things began happening, the bones shifted overnight, props fell for no reason, and one camera captured a faint knocking sound inside the truck when no one was near. The rumor spread that at least one bone came from a real cadaver donated in the 1940s, the same decade the truck was built. Coincidence or curse, no one could say. 7. The truck almost caused a real accident. During the highway chase sequence, the Creeper's truck was supposed to tail a stunt car at a fixed distance. But on one take, it surged forward unexpectedly, nearly slamming into the rear vehicle. The stunt driver swore he hadn't touched the throttle, the engine had revved itself. When they reviewed the footage, they noticed something unnerving. Right before the surge, both headlights flickered as if the truck had blinked. The footage was quietly edited and the incident never appeared in the theatrical cut. Salva later called it technical error, but the rumor lingered that something wanted to catch up. 6. The studio ordered it stored offsite after filming. When production wrapped, the Creeper's 1941 Chevy was too infamous to sit in a normal prop garage. Crew members didn't want to work near it. Night guards refused to patrol its section, so the studio ordered it moved to a locked facility outside Los Angeles. For years, its location was kept secret. When a collector tried to buy it in 2006, the studio denied owning it, even though behind closed doors, they still paid storage fees. Some fans claim the truck now rests in a private collection. Others whisper it was buried after a fire destroyed the storage lot in 2012. Officially, nothing remains. Unofficially, some say you can still hear its engine in the dark. Each of these secrets deepen the myth. What began as a prop became a living ghost in Hollywood's memory, a symbol of the thin line between cinematic illusion and something more sinister. Even now, decades later, those who worked on Jeepers Creepers hesitate when asked about the truck. They always pause, glance sideways, and answer softly, "Some things from that set shouldn't be touched again." By the time Jeepers Creepers premiered, the truck had already become its own monster. But what happened after the movie, when the cameras stopped rolling, when collectors came knocking, when fans started chasing it across the country, turned the legend into obsession. 5. The truck became a traveling urban legend. After Jeepers Creepers terrified audiences in 2001, fans began reporting sightings of a black 1941 Chevy COE on lonely highways across the American South. Some swore they saw it parked under broken street lamps, headlights glowing dimly before vanishing. Others claimed it followed them for miles, only to disappear when they turned on their high beams. Police reports surfaced in Florida, Texas, and Alabama, always describing the same growling engine, the same eerie plate, beaten Juyu. Of course, most were hoaxes or overeager horror fans playing tricks, but the pattern was too consistent, the timing too precise. By 2003, online forums had christened it the ghost truck of Ocala. Even the film's producers admitted they received anonymous photos of a vehicle that looked identical to their prop, taken months after the shoot had ended. 4. A replica nearly cursed its new owner. In 2007, a horror memorabilia collector named Ray Winters decided to build a perfect replica of the Creeper's truck for conventions. He sourced parts from junkyards, welded the same steel panels, and even recreated the eerie Betno plate. But once complete, things began to unravel. Within a week, the shop's electricity failed 3 nights in a row. His dog refused to go near the garage. Then, during its first public showcase, the engine caught fire, though no fuel line was damaged. The fire burned out within seconds, leaving a single mark on the hood that resembled a claw print. Winters dismantled the truck soon after storing the parts in separate locations. To this day, he won't speak about it publicly. Collectors call it the cursed replica, and it's quietly disappeared from the horror prop scene. 3. The truck's soundtrack lives in other horror films. You might have heard the Creeper's growl without realizing it. The same distorted engine recordings used in Jeepers Creepers were later repurposed in other films, sometimes subtly, sometimes unmistakably. The sound editor who created the signature Rumble licensed snippets to several low-budget horror movies in the mid-2000s. Listen closely in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 or Wrong Turn 2006, and you'll catch it, that low animalistic snarl echoing behind the chase scenes. For fans, it's become an auditory ghost, a reminder that the Creeper's truck still haunts modern horror, not through steel and smoke, but through sound. Even if the physical truck has vanished, its voice continues to stalk the genre. 2. A restoration attempt went terribly wrong. In 2011, rumors spread that the original studio truck had been rediscovered in a California storage yard. A restoration team reportedly bought it for $18,000, hoping to display it at horror conventions. They began cleaning and repairing the chassis, but strange incidents plagued the process. Tools vanished overnight. Weld seams split open after being sealed. One worker quit after the truck's radio spontaneously turned on blaring static. 3 weeks later, the project halted when the garage's roof collapsed during a mild storm, crushing the cab beyond repair. No one was injured, but the crew refused to touch it again. The wreck was later sold for scrap, yet as urban legend insists the scrapyard never received it. Through these later chapters, the Creeper's truck stopped being a film prop and became a cultural phantom, a steel ghost passed between imagination and asphalt. It appeared in nightmares, fan art, and highway campfire tales. Even people who've never seen Jeepers Creepers recognize its growl from somewhere deep in memory. In a strange way, that's the ultimate success of horror design, a machine so convincing, so primal, that audiences believe it could still be out there, prowling the back roads of America. And yet, amid all these twisted retellings, one question lingers: what truly powered that truck? Was it craftsmanship, coincidence, or something that refused to stay fictional? To answer that, we reach the final chapter, the one story even the crew hesitated to repeat. One, the Creeper's truck was born from a real tragedy. Every myth has an origin, and sometimes the truth is darker than fiction dares to be. Long before Jeepers Creepers was filmed, before the cameras rolled, and before the Creeper himself was imagined, a nearly identical 1941 Chevy COE was involved in a horrific event on a rural highway near Ocala, Florida, the same region where the movie would later be shot. Local archives tell of a man named Earl Watkins, a reclusive mortician who ran a private transport service in the late 1940s. He drove a customized Chevy COE truck, black windowless, and equipped with a rear compartment used to carry Special deliveries. In 1948, Watkins disappeared. His truck was found abandoned in a field, keys still in the ignition doors locked from the inside. The police opened it to a nightmare evidence of preserved remains and inscriptions carved into the metal lining of the cabin scripture numbers, and one chilling phrase scratched above the driver's seat to be eating you. The truck was impounded and eventually sold for parts. Decades later, when the Jeepers Creepers production team purchased their 1941 COE from a junkyard near that same area, no one made the connection. Not until one art assistant stumbled across an old newspaper clipping with a photo. The rusted outline, the cab's shape, the dent near the left fender all matched. They hadn't built a replica of that truck. They had bought it. Once the story reached the director, he reportedly ordered everyone to stop talking about it, not for fear of scandal, but because some crew had already started hearing strange noises during night shoots, the sound of someone knocking from inside the truck's storage door, even when it was empty. The coincidence was never confirmed publicly, but insiders whispered that the studio quietly changed its insurance policy afterward. The vehicle's serial number was missing from all archive production notes. When asked years later whether the real Creeper's truck was still out there, Salva only smiled and said, "Some props go to museums, others go home." And maybe that's the heart of the myth, that a piece of metal can absorb fear, memory, and grief until it becomes something more than a machine. The Creeper's 1941 Chevy COE wasn't just a vehicle of horror, it was a relic of real darkness revived by cinema to remind us how easily fiction borrows from the truth. So next time you're driving through a quiet back road and you catch a low growl behind you, don't look back, because the Creeper's truck doesn't chase, it waits. So what began as a rusted relic in a forgotten field became one of horror cinema's most enduring nightmares. The Creeper's 1941 Chevy COE truck part machine, part myth and part curse, still lingers in the shadows of movie history. It started as a coincidence, a junkyard find that just happened to match the story's darkness. Then came the transformations, the welding, the roar, the stench, the rust that looked too real. Next were the accidents, the whispers, the small malfunctions that no one could explain. And finally, the truth, or what felt like it, about a truck that might have carried real horror long before Hollywood ever called action. It's strange how cinema works. We think we're watching a story, but sometimes the story watches us back. For the fans who still chase the legend, the Creeper's truck isn't just a prop, it's a warning. It reminds us that every sound, every flicker, every engine growl in the dark might be echoing something real. The movie ends, the credits roll, the lights come up, but that low metallic breath never quite fades away. And that's why decades later, this black 1941 Chevy COE still holds a place in our nightmares. Because deep down, we don't just fear the monster behind the wheel, we fear the idea that the truck itself remembers us. So whether it's parked in a collector's warehouse, buried under the Florida soil, or prowling the highways when the moon is thin, one truth remains: you can't kill what was never alive, because it was never dead.